Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off our presentation today with the theme, our environment. This is the first slide, and I want to warmly welcome you all. Today, we'll explore important aspects of our environment, including the challenges we face and the ways we can make a difference. We'll cover topics from environmental issues to sustainable solutions. So, let's get started and dive into understanding how we can protect and preserve our environment for the future. Let's start by understanding what garbage really is. Garbage refers to waste materials that are discarded after use, and it plays a significant role in environmental health. Moving on, we'll explore some limitations of energy flow within ecosystems. Energy flows from one organism to another, but only a small portion is transferred. Much is lost as heat, which limits the efficiency of energy transfer. This brings us to the concept of the food chain, which shows how energy and nutrients move through different organisms in a linear sequence. Building on that, we have food webs, which are more complex, interconnected systems of multiple food chains, illustrating the intricate relationships among various species. Now, let's talk about the types of organisms involved in these systems. They can be producers, consumers, or decomposers, each playing a vital role in maintaining ecological balance. Next, we'll discuss the ozone layer, specifically ozone, O3, which acts as Earth's protective shield against harmful ultraviolet rays. Its depletion, caused by certain pollutants, has serious environmental consequences. This leads us to the broader topic of the depletion of ozone, emphasizing the importance of protecting this layer. Moving forward, we'll classify garbage into different categories based on its source and nature, which helps in managing waste effectively. An interesting question is why ecosystems typically have only 4 trophic levels. This is because energy transfer becomes too inefficient beyond these levels, limiting the number of steps in food chains. Biological magnification is another key concept. It describes how certain pollutants increase in concentration as they move up the food chain, posing risks to top predators. Then, we look at types of ecosystems, such as terrestrial, aquatic, and others, each with unique characteristics and biodiversity. Finally, we'll review the 10% law, which states that only about 10% of the energy from one trophic level is transferred to the next, highlighting the inefficiency of energy transfer in ecological systems. All these concepts tie together to give us a comprehensive understanding of how ecosystems function, how waste and pollutants impact them, and the importance of conserving our environment. When we talk about an ecosystem, we're referring to all the interacting organisms in an area along with the non-living elements of the environment. These non-living components, or abiotic factors, include things like temperature, rainfall, wind, soil, and minerals. They play a crucial role in shaping the environment and influencing the living organisms. On the other hand, we have the biotic components, which consist of all the living organisms, plants, animals, microbes, that inhabit the area. These living things interact with each other and with the non-living elements, creating a complex, dynamic system. So, when we put it all together, an ecosystem is essentially a community of living organisms and their physical environment working together. It's this interaction between biotic and abiotic components that maintains the balance and health of the ecosystem. Understanding this interconnectedness helps us appreciate how vital each part is to the overall functioning of the environment. And as we move forward in this presentation, keep in mind that these interactions are at the core of ecological studies and conservation efforts. Now, moving on to the types of ecosystems, let's start with the human-made or artificial ecosystems. These are structures created by humans where both living organisms, called biotic components, and non-living elements, called abiotic components, are made to interact with each other for survival. Examples of these include crop fields, gardens, and aquariums. They are intentionally designed to sustain specific life forms, and they mimic natural processes, but they are, of course, created by us. On the other hand, we have natural ecosystems. These occur freely in nature without human intervention. Think of forests, ponds, lakes. These are all examples where nature has naturally set up a community of living things like plants and animals, along with non-living elements such as water, soil, and air. Now, to summarize, there are mainly two types of ecosystems: artificial or human-made ecosystems and natural ecosystems. Understanding the differences and characteristics of each helps us appreciate how life interacts with the environment, whether it's created by us or left to nature's own design. Now, moving on to slide 5, let's talk about the microorganisms involved in decomposition. These are called decomposers. They play a crucial role in the ecosystem by breaking down the dead remains of plants and animals and turning them into humus, which enriches the soil. The main types of decomposers are fungi and bacteria. Without these microorganisms, dead organic matter would accumulate, and nutrients wouldn't be recycled back into the environment. So, decomposers are essential for maintaining the balance in nature. Let's take a closer look at producers and their vital role. Producers are essentially the driving force behind the scenes. They manage the overall production process, coordinating various elements to ensure everything runs smoothly. Think of them as the project managers, but for creative works like films, television, or even large-scale events. Their responsibilities include overseeing budgets, timelines, staffing, and making key decisions to keep the project on track. Highlighting this, producers are crucial because they connect the creative vision with practical execution. Without them, even the best ideas could struggle to come to life efficiently. As we move through this presentation, keep in mind that understanding producers helps us appreciate how complex projects are brought from concept to completion seamlessly. When we talk about consumers, we're really focusing on the people who buy and use products or services. They are the heart of any market, and understanding their behavior is crucial. Consumers are influenced by a variety of factors, such as personal preferences, social trends, and even technological changes. It's important to recognize that their needs and expectations are constantly evolving. This means that businesses need to stay adaptable and attentive to what consumers want today and what they might want tomorrow. By understanding consumer behavior, companies can better tailor their marketing strategies, improve customer experiences, and build stronger relationships. Ultimately, the success of any business hinges on how well it meets the needs of its consumers, making them central to the overall theme of this presentation. Decomposers are an essential part of any ecosystem. They are the organisms responsible for breaking down dead organic material, like fallen leaves, dead animals, and other organic waste. By doing this, they recycle nutrients back into the soil, making them available for plants to absorb and use. This process is crucial because it maintains the health and balance of the ecosystem. Without decomposers, dead matter would accumulate, and nutrients would become locked away, disrupting the flow of energy and matter. So, in the grand scheme of things, decomposers act as the cleanup crew that keeps everything moving smoothly. Their role highlights how interconnected all parts of an ecosystem are, emphasizing the importance of every organism, no matter how small, in supporting life on Earth. Let's take a closer look at the food chain and its different levels. Starting at the bottom, we have the autotrophs, or producers, which form the first trophic level. These are the organisms that capture solar energy, like plants and algae, and convert it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. This process is crucial because it makes energy available for all other organisms in the chain. Moving up, at the second trophic level, we find the herbivores, also known as primary consumers. These are the animals that feed directly on the autotrophs, such as deer or insects that eat plants. Next, at the third trophic level, we have the small carnivores, or secondary consumers. These organisms prey on the herbivores. Think of animals like foxes or small birds that hunt insects and herbivorous mammals. Finally, at the fourth trophic level, we find the larger carnivores or tertiary consumers. These are the top predators in the chain, such as wolves or big cats, which prey on smaller carnivores. It's important to understand that each step or level in this chain is called a trophic level. The entire series of organisms across these levels makes up a food chain. illustrating how energy flows through an ecosystem. Recognizing these levels helps us see the interconnectedness of all living things, emphasizing how energy transfer sustains the ecological balance we depend on. When green plants are eaten by primary consumers, a significant portion of energy is lost as heat into the environment. Some of that energy is used up in digestion and doing work, but the rest goes toward growth and reproduction. On average, only about 10% of the food that an organism consumes is transformed into its own body tissue and becomes available for the next level in the food chain. This means that, generally speaking, about 10% of the organic matter at each step can be passed along to the next. Now, this brings us to an important concept known as the 10% law. It highlights how energy flows through an ecosystem. Only a small fraction, roughly 10% of the energy from one level is transferred to the next. In terrestrial ecosystems, for example, green plants are capable of capturing just about 1% of the sunlight that hits their leaves. This captured energy is then converted into food energy through photosynthesis. So, while plants do a remarkable job at capturing sunlight, only a tiny fraction of that energy actually makes its way into the food chain. Understanding this 10% transfer efficiency is crucial because it explains why energy diminishes as you move up the food chain. It also helps us grasp the limits of energy flow in ecological systems, reinforcing the interconnectedness and the delicate balance within ecosystems. As we move up the food chain, only a small amount of energy is available for the next level of consumers. This is a crucial point because it explains why food chains typically have only 3 or 4 steps. The energy loss at each stage is quite significant, so by the time you reach the 4th trophic level, very little usable energy remains. This is why ecosystems usually don't have longer chains. Essentially, the energy transfer becomes less efficient as you go higher, limiting the number of trophic levels that can be supported. This concept ties back to the overall theme of energy flow and efficiency within ecosystems. The length and complexity of food chains can really vary a lot. Usually, each organism isn't just eaten by one other organism, but rather by 2 or more different kinds. And those predators, in turn, are eaten by several other kinds of organisms as well. So, instead of thinking of a simple, straight line, this network of feeding relationships is better visualized as a series of branches. We call this a food web. Food webs help us understand how interconnected and intricate ecosystems really are. They highlight how many different species depend on each other for energy and survival. This interconnectedness is a key part of what makes ecosystems resilient and balanced. Understanding food webs gives us a clearer picture of the complexity behind the food chain and how every organism plays a role in maintaining the health of the environment. As we move through the trophic levels, you'll notice that the energy available at each stage actually gets smaller and smaller. This is because with every transfer, some energy is lost, mostly as heat. So the energy diminishes progressively as it moves up the food chain. It's also important to understand that this flow of energy is unidirectional. Once the energy is captured by autotrophs, like plants, it doesn't revert back to the solar input. The process is one way. Energy flows in a single direction from the sun to producers and then up through the consumers. Now, regarding the limitations of energy flow in our environment, these are key points to keep in mind. The energy transfer isn't 100% efficient, which means a lot of energy is lost at each step. This limits how much energy is available for organisms higher up in the food chain. Recognizing these limitations helps us understand the constraints on ecosystems and why energy availability influences ecological dynamics overall. Let's talk about biological magnification. This is a process where the concentration of a substance, like a toxic chemical, increases as it moves up the food chain. So, at each level, organisms accumulate more of these chemicals in their tissues. The most important point here is that because humans are at the top of this food chain, we tend to have the highest concentration of these harmful substances in our bodies. That's why foods like wheat, rice, fruits, vegetables, and even meat can contain pesticide residues. It highlights how interconnected our diet is with environmental health and the importance of managing chemical use in agriculture. Let's take a closer look at the ozone layer, also known as O3. This layer is a thin but crucial part of our atmosphere, situated roughly 10 to 30 miles above Earth's surface. Its primary role is to absorb the majority of the sun's harmful ultraviolet radiation, protecting all living things on our planet. Without it, life as we know it would be impossible because UV rays can cause serious damage to our skin, eyes, and even disrupt ecosystems. What's particularly important to understand is that the ozone layer acts like a natural shield. However, human activities, especially the release of certain chemicals like chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, have caused significant depletion of this layer over the past decades. This depletion leads to the creation of the so-called ozone holes, which allow more UV radiation to reach the Earth's surface. Connecting this to our overall theme, the health of the ozone layer is a clear example of how human actions impact our environment. Protecting this layer is vital not just for maintaining ecological balance, but also for safeguarding public health. Initiatives like the Montreal Protocol have been successful in reducing emissions of harmful substances, showing us that international cooperation can make a real difference. So, understanding the ozone layer isn't just about atmospheric science. It's about recognizing our responsibility to preserve the delicate balance of our planet's systems for future generations. In 1987, the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP, took a significant step forward by reaching an agreement to freeze CFC production at 1986 levels. This was a crucial move because it helped slow down the rapid depletion of the ozone layer. As part of this agreement, all companies around the world are now required to produce refrigerators that are free of CFCs. During the 1980s, we saw a sharp decline in the amount of ozone in the atmosphere. This decline has been strongly linked to synthetic chemicals known as chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. These chemicals are commonly used as refrigerants in air conditioners and refrigerators, and also in fire extinguishers. This connection between CFCs and ozone depletion highlights how human activities and the chemicals we use can have a profound impact on our environment. It underscores the importance of international cooperation and responsible manufacturing practices in protecting our planet's ozone layer, which is vital for safeguarding life on Earth. Now, let's take a closer look at the two main types of garbage. First, we have non-biodegradable waste. This is waste that cannot be broken down naturally by microorganisms, which means it stays in the environment for a very long time and can cause pollution. Examples include plastics, certain types of packaging, and other materials that do not decompose easily. On the other hand, we have biodegradable waste. This type of waste can be broken down naturally by bacteria and other microorganisms. Typical examples include kitchen waste, vegetable and fruit peels, spoiled food, animal wastes, paper waste, dried leaves, husks, weeds, and even cattle wastes. These materials decompose relatively quickly and are less harmful to the environment when disposed of properly. Understanding these two types of waste is crucial because it helps us decide how to manage and dispose of our trash effectively. Proper segregation between biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste is key to reducing pollution and promoting recycling. Remember, garbage isn't just random waste. It includes everyday items like food scraps, paper, plastics, and organic materials. All of these are generated daily in our homes, and how we handle them impacts the environment significantly. So, being aware of what constitutes garbage and knowing the difference between these waste types is an essential step towards sustainable waste management. Now, moving on to the final slide, let's talk about substances that are broken down by biological processes. These are called biodegradable. Basically, these materials can be decomposed naturally by the action of microorganisms like bacteria and fungi, which helps in recycling and reducing waste. On the other hand, we have non-biodegradable substances. These cannot be broken down by enzyme action or natural processes, so they tend to persist in the environment for a very long time, often causing pollution and other problems. When we look at waste classification, it's important to distinguish between biodegradable waste and non-biodegradable waste. This understanding helps us manage our garbage more effectively. By identifying which waste can decompose naturally, we can promote proper disposal and recycling practices. Remember, this classification is a key part of waste management and environmental conservation, reinforcing our overall goal of reducing pollution and protecting our planet. So, knowing the difference between biodegradable and non-biodegradable substances is essential for responsible waste disposal and sustainable living.